Hello and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn, and in today's video we're going to look at another criterion in the IELTS speaking test. This time we're going to look at pronunciation. Good news about pronunciation, of course, is I don't need to explain to you what pronunciation is, but there are again a lot of difficult pieces of language in the official guidance, right? So if you again do a search for IELTS band descriptors speaking, you'll get something like uses a full range of phonological features. Full range of phonological features. Well, what are phonological features and what is a full range? Or flexible use of features of connected speech is sustained throughout. What is connected speech? Scrolling down, you might get things like can sustain appropriate rhythm, flexible use of stress and intonation across long utterances. Well, what is an utterance? So again, a lot of that language, you might understand some of it, but not all of it. And so the purpose of this video, is to break some of these pieces of terminology down and explain them in nice, simple, easy to understand language. Okay, let's take a look at IELTS band descriptors with pronunciation. So as I mentioned, the good news is I don't need to explain to you what pronunciation is. So pronunciation, in short, is the way that the candidate's language sounds in speech. Easy. Of course, you may have ideas about what good or bad pronunciation is in your mind, but we'll look at it specifically from what IELTS says, and we'll look at bands 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So in the previous one, Fluency and Coherence, I just looked at bands 4, 5, 6, and 7, but I think you'll see why I've included band 8 in today's video. Okay, let's get into it. So, band 4. Some phonemes. What are phonemes? Phoneme is a very short bit of language. They are individual sounds. T, k, b, u, o. At band 4, some phonemes are produced correctly, but definitely not all. So, usually band 4s can pronounce the t, although some speakers, for example in Indian English, they have a softer t, where the t sounds a little bit more like a d. But usually, most speakers can pronounce b and t, and especially k. Those sounds are very easily produced. But definitely not all. And certainly, a lot of people have problems with the and th in English, and vowel sounds like I and E. Okay, but individual phonemes and words are often mispronounced at band 4. Often is the key word, and this can make the speech unclear. So sometimes the way that a speaker produces this sound makes the listener think like, what did he say? Once I was on holiday in Thailand and I was in a taxi, and the taxi driver said, "Yongo bi." So he didn't even use this ch at all. And the fact that he didn't use this ch, b, meant that I couldn't understand that he was saying beach. So you get that quite often at band 4. Those mistakes with pronunciation make it difficult to understand. Next, the speaker sometimes chunks or groups words together. So, sometimes we have expressions like in order to, and in order to is always linked together. So I went to the shop in order to buy a new hat. I went to the shop in order to buy a new hat. I went to the shop, chunk 1, in order to buy, chunk 2, a new hat, chunk 3. Okay, they may not always be chunked that way, and there are different ways of chunking, but certainly if you don't chunk, you can see that the language sounds mechanical, robotic. I went to the shop in order to buy a hat. That has no chunking. Each word is pronounced separately. Chunking, okay, I think you get the idea. So at band 4, the candidate sometimes chunks, but not always, and there are often problems with the speaker's rhythm. So, of course, if you speak mechanically, you have not very rhythmic language. And so this is, it's important to say that sometimes they chunk, but it's noticeable that sometimes the language sounds mechanical or not rhythmic at band 4. Next, the candidate tries to use intonation and stress. So intonation, you can hear it in my voice right now, so I can speak up or I can speak low, and we tend to have quite high pitch and quite pleasant intonation when we're happy, and we speak in a lower intonation or a lower pitch when we are sad. So intonation talks about going up, going down. If you've studied Chinese before, you might know the ma, 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 ma intonation, rising, falling, level, but okay, you don't need to know that so much. And stress, we have, of course, word stress, so stress on a particular word, like we say communicative, not communicative, but communicative. We say address in British English, but address in American English. So there's a difference with stress, word stress there, but also in sentence stress. So, you might change the word that you want to stress. So notice the difference, for example, between I went to the shop with my friends yesterday, or I went to the shop with my friends yesterday, or I went to the shop with my friends yesterday. Choosing which word in the sentence to pronounce is a skill. But the good thing is that this happens in most languages. There are different types of languages, like you can divide them into stress-timed languages or syllable-timed languages, but this is deep linguistic stuff that you don't need to worry about. Generally, people, high-level learners, naturally produce accurate stress, but it's certainly something that we look for. So band 4, the candidate tries to use intonation and stress, but again, problems happen quite often. They don't do it over all of the test, maybe just in part 1 and then in part 2 and part 3, where things get more difficult. Maybe they lose that correct intonation or correct stress, or not correct, but appropriate intonation, appropriate stress. And then finally, for band 4, the listener must work a little. So this is the easiest thing for an examiner. This is the easiest thing for an examiner to assess, right? A question we can ask ourselves: how hard do I have to work to understand what this person is saying? Do I have to lean in and really listen and really pay attention to try to understand what they're saying? Or can I not work at all? Can I just sit back, listen, and not even think about the fact that I'm not working hard? So this is a very easy thing, a very, very easy thing for examiners to notice. How hard must I work to understand what the other person is saying? All right, that's band 4. Now, band 5 is like this. It looks like cheating. The candidate has all the positive features of band 4, so all the good stuff in band 4, and some, but not all, of the positive features of band 6. Makes sense. So it's between band 4 and band 6, obviously. Let's take a look at band 6 then. So this time we have most phonemes are pronounced correctly, so most of those individual sounds. Of course, there are problems, there are mispronunciations with individual phonemes, usually the. For some Spanish speakers, sometimes the B and the V create some problems. Valencia, sorry. And sometimes words are mispronounced, the wrong sentence stress, the wrong word stress. With Russian speakers, we have words like imaginative and communicative. Russian speakers love to say imaginative or communicative. Just something that happens. Or with the eyes suffix, so realize, organize, prioritize. We don't usually put the stress on the suffix, but Russians often do. Realize, organize, prioritize. So it's a common mistake with Russian speakers of English. Okay, that's the first one. So most phonemes correct, but still some mistakes with individual sounds or individual words. Secondly, some good chunking or grouping, but there are some cases when the speech sounds mechanical. So very, very similar to what we had in band 4 here. Candidate sometimes chunks, And this time we have some good chunking grouping, but some cases when the speech sounds are mechanical. So again, we're looking at frequency. Examiner asks themselves, well, does this language sound mechanical often? If so, band 4, band 5. Does the speech sound mechanical sometimes, but not very often? More like band 6. Okay, next one. The candidate sometimes uses intonation and stress effectively. So not just tries to use it, like we saw in band 4, they try to use it, but the candidate sometimes uses intonation and stress effectively. But again, not in all parts of the test. So again, intonation, one thing I tell my students is try to show your emotion through your intonation. So this is a very good, very easy thing for examiners to spot. If you're speaking about something that makes you happy, use happy intonation. If you're speaking about something that you don't like, use more negative intonation. And very often, the way that our face looks can automatically, naturally affect this pronunciation. There are a lot of linguists who think that, pronunciation is something that doesn't need to be taught. It's something that we naturally can pick up. It's something that we naturally do. It's a biological thing, especially the biolinguists love this idea. But just notice my face, right? If I'm speaking about something that I like, so tell me about your favorite musician. Oh, my favorite musician is Elliott Smith. I think his songs are amazing. I really like the melodies and the vocals, and his guitar work is really second to none. It's amazing. You can see my face. I'm kind of smiling. I'm kind of bright. But if you ask me a question okay, is there a musician you don't like? Oh, I don't like Bon Jovi. His music is just so boring. So my intonation is different. My facial expression is different. So use your facial expression to help your intonation. And again, showing attitude, I like, I don't like, is an easy way to show intonation here. But this is more a video explaining the criteria, not necessarily about giving tips. Of course, in the future, there may be some videos. Oh, I'm sure there will be some videos giving tips. But okay. So candidate uses intonation and stress effectively, but not in all parts of the test. So, okay, fine. And then finally, the listener doesn't have to work very hard to understand what the candidate is saying. So, yeah, maybe there are some points where I have to lean in or listen carefully, but generally don't have to work very hard to understand what they're saying. Very easy to understand. Band 7, again, candidate has all the positive features of Band 6, so all of the good stuff here, and some, but not all, of the positive features of Band 8. Okay, so in order to understand a Band 7, we must understand what Band 8 pronunciation features are. Let's take a look. So, almost all phonemes, individual sounds, k, t, b, v, u, o, are pronounced correctly with precision. So, I'm sure as language learners of English, you've come across this thing where you mispronounce ship or sheep. Those I versus E. These are things that we call minimal pairs. Two words that are exactly the same except for one phoneme. Ship and sheep. At Band 8, we don't have problems as examiners understanding if they're saying ship or sheep. Not because of context, but because of the precision in the pronunciation. So generally, although there can still be some rare mistakes, and importantly, these mistakes don't make the speech unclear. So, for example, a Russian speaker, oh yes, I bought this phone last week. Right, I bought this phone last week. I bought this phone last week. I bought this phone last week. Not all of the phonemes are pronounced correctly, especially the. They've changed to this, and also in this, they don't quite have that I. It sounds more like E, this. So they're not all 100% correct, but this does not affect how easy it is to understand what the person is saying. I bought this phone last week. The person is saying this phone. Okay. Okay, that's the first one. The second one, the candidate maintains a good rhythm throughout the test with good chunking and grouping. So, throughout the test, in general, again, maybe some small, very minor problems with chunking and grouping these words together, but in general, no. In general, throughout all of the test, they have good chunking. Almost no evidence of mechanical robotic speech. So again, you think band 4, they often use mechanical speech. They often talk like this without grouping the words together. In band 6, they have some good chunking, but some mechanical speech. So when I was younger, I went to Barbados for my holiday, and they had a nice big hotel in this place where we stayed, and one of my favorite things was the clean and sandy beaches. So they have elements, good chunking, but with some mechanical speech, whereas at band 8, throughout the test, they have good chunking throughout. All right, next. The candidate has good stress and intonation, even across long sentences, but there can be some mistakes. So intonation is, easy to get, and sentence stress is easy to get with short sentences. I went to the shop yesterday. I went to the shop yesterday. Put the sentence stress or the main stress on shop. I went to the shop yesterday. But across long sentences, it can be more difficult, and it takes more skill, and you see these especially in contrasters. So you could have the word like, despite the fact that it was raining, we still had a nice time. Despite the fact that it was raining, we still had a nice time. So that's a high level of skill across longer sentences. Difficult to hit that intonation. But of course, band 8, that is level C2, and so that's super high stuff. Okay. Next one. It is easy to understand what the candidate is saying. Of course, if you're level C2, if you're band 8, we might not just enjoy what the person is saying, but we might not just understand what the person is saying, but we might even aesthetically enjoy the candidate's pronunciation. I'm sure you've had that experience sometimes where you listen to someone speaking, probably not me, but you listen to someone speaking and you think, wow, I love that. I love the way that person speaks. It's so natural. It's so cool. It's so easy to understand. Cool. And then finally, an important point to remember that even for C2 users, an accent is still present or can still be present. Getting C2 pronunciation doesn't mean losing your accent. You can have C2 pronunciation with an Indian accent of English, a Russian accent of English, a Chinese accent of English, a Spanish accent of English. You can still have your accent. You do not have to give up your accent. But the important thing is that accent doesn't affect how clear the speech is. So you could have... I won't do a Chinese accent because it's considered not very appropriate by a lot of people, and maybe that's correct. But yeah, just the point that you can still have your accent and you can still get C2. Anyway, that's just a quick overview of the bands 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 with the IELTS speaking pronunciation criterion. Of course, if you have any questions, do let me know in the comments. At the moment, nobody is watching these YouTube videos, which is great. Hopefully in the future, some people will come back to them and they will find them useful. But at the time of recording, I am looking for volunteers. If you would like a free practice IELTS speaking test with feedback, please do get in touch and we will set that up. But I'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for your time and have a wonderful day, evening, or whatever time it is where you are. Thank you.